Changing others' behaviors or way of thinking is kind of ultimately nothing else but a narcissistic pursuit. Wanting to change others' behaviors, typically has some implication. You want them to do things your own way. A lot of people, unfortunately, who seek this are definitely lost in different levels of misery and obviously ignorance because they're not asking themselves the right questions. When you want other people to function like you, to do the same things that you do, ask yourself one question. Are you a good example for that person, or are you just something else but a failure? Because we can see in society how much ignorance there is. All the previous generations have been lost in the same dream that everything is good in society, just follow along and don't question anything. They are, in a way, a certain kind of failure in society because they have been programmed to live life in a very small, minute way. If you're thinking similar to them, you're probably gonna reach as far as they have reached in life. Because you see a lot of dumb parents nowadays, they just compare themselves with their children. They don't compare themselves with their own generation. But in the end, if you as a child compare yourself with your parents, see, when you are young, they're gonna tell you that, at least they've done school, they've done so many more things compared to you, right? When they pull you down. Now you've done school, now you've done faculty, college, whatever you call it. You've probably reached, you're in your early mid 20s, and you got yourself hired. You have reached the highest that your parents have done. Sure, they will have that ultimate excuse that, hey, they have worked towards society for more than you, but yes, obviously. But when you say things like this and compare yourself with the others and hoping you're going to program them to program their own children the same way and this way only propagate the misery that, represents them, it's like you're in your 30s and you go to a child who's 8 years of age and you pride yourself to them that you have taken Cambridge or some other great exam or some other greater challenge of life, but they're too young for that anyway. So what's the point of that, right? So a lot of people use all of these kind of more or less aggressive approaches to try to make others think or function like them. I try to remind people one thing. See, when you're surrounded by people who think and act the same way as you do, unfortunately, you're in a prison. You're not in a place where you're going to evolve because when everyone thinks and functions the same way as you do or very similarly, who are you going to ask for something different? See, that is a problem because religions, for example, have been used as a means to ensure such an environment, right? Religion should be a personal pursuit. It is a pursuit of how someone believes creation looks like, behaves like, and asks of you to be like. And that should be an inner pursuit, not something used as a tool to impose this idea of communism that everyone thinks alike, functions alike, and such. This is just a globalist agenda where everyone thinks the same. And when everyone thinks the same, obviously they're not going to doubt anything else beyond their knowledge. You can see this in all the previous generations that whatever they're thinking, kind of the others also know it equally. And they can't think otherwise, or they probably think you're kind of telepathic, actually, or, they think that there's. An exact amount of functionality. I can't put it into words, but I've met people who think that exactly what they are thinking at that moment, you can't think anything else, right? You're like everyone functions at exactly the same moment as them with the exact same thoughts. You can't think at anything else while they're telling you something and they're having a stupid expectation that you're going to reply to them. Right? Some people just, like my grandmother used to do that. They would stare you in the eyes and they would think of something and they were perfectly 100% convinced that you were thinking of the same thing, and they had the explanation that you would give them the answer as if you were telepathically understanding their question and you would have to give them the answer, and then they would be pissed if you don't give them an answer because, hey, you are supposed to know the question anyways. So a lot of idiocy exists in the world, but the very simple point is when you try to convince others to follow you, you're always going to be in a detriment. You're always going to create karma because you're going to invest your own energy into trying to influence their own energy. See, creation gave all living beings free will. Even animals on this planet, they have free will. Yes, they are very enticed into this idea of survival, and in their natural environment, obviously, survival is the most important thing they place an accent on. But all their decisions they are taking are out of free will. Yes, their free will is extremely limited by survival, but when you look at this society that we have and we live in, well, the globalists' ancestors made sure that in at least the last 1,000 years that we lived as a race, as humans in general, they have made everything possible that we live in this idea of survival. Look at all the history, all we have done as humans. We have lived in the worst environments possible, especially emotionally and mentally. We've never been taught how to, understand our emotions, how to understand our mind. But that is understandable because, life has its own cycles. And one of the more destructive cycles, called in some cultures as the Kali Yuga, for example, is a very self destructive influence that, well, it will swipe through all unconscious beings. Now, if one becomes conscious, they can transcend such cycles, but slowly and surely, because transcendence and cycles and ignorance and awakening, they all have multitudes of levels. No one just wakes up instantly and they are fully enlightened. Enlightenment has its own, let's say, stages. So when it comes to trying to change others, remember that they all have a free will. People who find comfort in living and behaving as slaves, well, they're not going to receive too much anyways. Maybe they're going to be allowed to live for a while because they're usable tools, but don't forget slaves are always easily discardable. And something or someone easily disposable, they're not going to matter much anyways. Anyone who is a master, anyone who is someone who controls situations or has a great amount of influence, they're not going to be interested in slaves. Yes, they might make use of some, but if some die, they're just easily going to be replaced. Especially in misery, where people find comfort in the easiest of things. And it is the easiest in the world to simply constantly negate things that are beyond your experience, or to simply cry about everything and victimize. These are some of, if not the most easy things to do. When it comes to life, just remember that creation gave free will to everyone. So trying to change them, aren't you the monster instead? Because when you try to change a narcissist, for example, well, the narcissist is functioning in an authentic way. Yes, I know it's hard to put narcissism and authenticity in the same sentence, but one has to understand narcissism is a function, a mechanic of a broken psyche. And that mechanic is genuine in its own way. Yeah, sure, that mechanic deals with manipulation, with the such, but the narcissists themselves, they are authentic to themselves, right? Because that is their function. That is the only thing they can perceive, they can understand, and that is the only thing they're going to be willing to do. That is why I'm saying they are authentic to themselves. When they lie, cheat, deceit, and the such, that's their authentic function. I'm not saying that they're authentic towards others. Well, in the end, they are authentic towards the others because how they believe what they're doing, well, that's their actual mechanic. Trying to change that is literal madness because you are the one who tries to pull them out of how they want to be, right? But narcissism in the end is not how someone wants to be. Because of extreme abuse, they end up being like that. But see, one of my quotes says that everyone is authentic to themselves. Everyone gets lost in certain layers and, you know, let's say, holes of awareness. Yes, because there are different lessons to learn. But when it comes, for example, to um, some of these holes, some of these trap holes, let's say, of awareness, see, narcissism is one of those. One has to go through immense amount of pains in many situations if they want to break out of the comfort zone, because comfort zone is good, but if too much is invested in it, then it becomes a poison, and that is a problem. So the point moving forwards is, don't try to change people, because in the end everyone is authentic to their own points of view. Everyone is authentic to whatever they believe in. Well, meaning, yes, it is variable, but in order to accept meaning, you have to invest into it, right? Meaning means something that you accept and you invest in. So obviously, you're going to be authentic towards that. And meaning can be of anything. It can be the domain you take part in, it can be part of your spirituality, it can be a religious set of beliefs, it can be anything else. But point is, everyone is authentic to that which they believe in. Everyone is authentic to that which they believe their behavior is. Everyone is authentic to all sorts of things. Unfortunately, a lot of meaning is placed on things, yes, and a lot of focus is placed on meaning. But the point is, when someone becomes somewhat capable of understanding their inner walls, let's say, well, when that happens, the point is, people will simply start tending towards being authentic more towards the rule of nature. Because nature designed you in by a certain blueprint, let's say. That blueprint is general, because nature created life in its own way. All of us humans have a general human blueprint, right? A certain way of thinking and the such. Each individual makes use of that in their own way, right? But ultimately, it is a blueprint for all of us. Wanting to change that, well, it can be changed through manipulation. Manipulation means making use of energy in order to obtain certain outcomes. But don't forget, every action has a certain reaction as well. So the very simple point is, if God themselves is not gonna change anyone because they gave them free will, if God themselves is not gonna move any of their fingers to save miserable people from their own misery, well, why would you be more stupid, right? Why would you be silly to try? Because creation that is infinite won't change people because they have free will. If you change someone and they agree, well, the point is, you're gonna cause more harm, because in the long run, you're gonna disallow them from learning certain lessons. So sooner or later in life, they will bump into situations that will test them whether they have learned their lesson or not. Life is a cycle, it is a set of cycles. And based on how much and how fast you learn certain things, you will become more adaptable. If you choose not to learn things, when something happens, you haven't learned your lesson, you will bump into it again, and it will make you feel even more miserable. When you have learned something, well, you're gonna adapt to it and you're gonna simply move further. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. Take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferencan Board signing out.